Hey guys, I'm Jessica75 here, and today I'm going to be starting off my LEGO organizing series with episode 1, technically not starting it off because we had episode 0, but episode 1, and today I'll be focusing specifically on sorting your LEGO parts. So I'll be tackling 3 different things in this video relating to that kind of topic. The 2 main sorting sort of systems, which are by part and by color, and really the pros and cons of each of those, and kind of the use cases and stuff like that. Then next I'm going to talk briefly about sorting bulk LEGO, and specifically my method for that, because there's a whole bunch of methods. I cannot cover them all, and really it's just a lot of experimentation to figure out which one you want to use, so I'll just be sharing what I do. And then last I will be talking about to-be sorted bins and kind of the pros and cons of having a to-be sorted bin, and why or why not I do not have a to-be sorted bin for my LEGO collection. So without further ado, let's get into the first of these, talking about sorting your pieces by part or by color. Alright, so first things first, let's talk about how you actually want to sort your LEGO collection. So I'm just going to be focusing on the 2 main extremes in this video, as you could probably tell, which are sorting by part, which I've done here, versus sorting by color, which I've done here. So in this pile we have a whole bunch of 2x2 plates in any color. All of those are just right in here. And then this pile on the right side of the camera is just a whole bunch of different parts, all of which are in dark bluish gray. So really, if you're going to want to use one of these, which you should probably figure out before you start sorting your LEGO collection, is what you want to do, depends on a few different factors, which I will get into. One of which is the size of your collection, which is probably one of the more influential factors. Second off is what you are building, or how you like to build, or what your thought process is when you're looking for pieces, which is probably the most important one. And there are various other ones as well, but those are the main 2, so there you go. Also, things you have to consider, like how much space you have, what your budget is, how much you're willing to dedicate to sorting your LEGO out, but I'm not going to be focusing on a lot of the necessarily containers and stuff in this video. That will be in the next episode of this series, which will come out in a few weeks. So if you are interested in that, stay tuned for that, but for now we'll just be talking about by part and by color. So we'll start out here with by part and why you'd want to use this. I find that sorting pieces by part is generally very helpful if you have a large number of pieces or a larger LEGO collection like I tend to have. Again, I say that my collection is about medium-sized compared to probably what is the grand scheme of LEGO collections. There are some people who have very little compared to the amount of LEGO I have, and there are some people where when you compare my collection to their collection, I have very little compared to their collection. So what you want to do is really going to be dependent on size, but I think that once you start getting a few thousand pieces, it really starts to make sense to start sorting your parts out by part ID, or sorting by part, or whatever you want to call it. And the main reason that you would do this is, one, it just makes it easier to find specific parts, which is kind of the whole point. If, say, I'm looking for a orange 2x2 plate, I just go to where I have all my 2x2 plates and I pick out an orange one here, which is the benefit of sorting by part. You have, basically, if you sort strictly by part, which is not something I do, and again, getting into the whole, these are just the 2 extremes, is that you have basically one container full of all of your parts of whatever part this is, and if you want that part, you go in that container and you look for whatever color you want of that part in there. And assuming you didn't pull it out for some reason, again, you're sorting strictly by part, then it should be in there. Like, say I wanted a black 2x2 plate, there it is. If I want a red one, there it is, and obviously these aren't all the 2x2 plates I have, so it's not going to be like every single color is in this little pile here. But that is the main benefit of sorting by part. I would recommend that you should sort by part regardless of the size of your collection. If when you're looking for pieces you think of the part you want first versus the color, and I would recommend sorting by color if you think of the color of the part you want first before you think of the part. Again, I'm not saying that either of these is necessarily better. I'm just presenting you the options so that depending on what you like to do, or how you build, or what your thought process is, or for any variety of reasons, you can pick the solution that is right for you, and I'm just pointing out why you might want to pick certain things. So pretty much those are the pros of sorting by part. is that all of that part is in one area. If you're just looking for that part in any color, it's very easy to find. And it's also, if you're looking for a specific piece, I tend to find that for me it's easier to find that in there as well. But again, some people can be helped by sorting by color. But kind of probably the biggest con that I see for sorting by part is the space requirement. I sort by part. If you have seen any of my videos, you'll know that I have pretty much just a giant section of wall just dedicated to sorting all my parts out, because if you sort by part versus sorting by color, there are a lot more categories to sort out for by part. So one, you will probably need smaller containers to sort out by part effectively, and two, you will probably be dedicating a lot of space to sorting by part. Again, let me state, I have a medium-sized collection in the grand scheme of things, and even I have had to run things together just to actually make most of everything fit in where I have the space for it. And even then, there are some things I'm really not happy with, which we'll get to probably when I show you guys what I've done to sort and store my collection in the future. But again, if you're going to sort by part specifically, expect to dedicate a whole lot of space to this, because one, you'll need a lot of small containers, and two, you'll need a lot of containers, because sorting by part, there are more categories to sort by than sorting by color, which leads nicely into sorting by color, which is basically you take all the parts of one color, like for example we have dark bluish gray here, and you just put them all in a bin and you call it a day. So say in this sort of stack of pieces I was looking for any part in dark bluish gray. That's very easy because all these parts are in dark bluish gray. I just pick a part out and I instantly have the part I need. However, if I'm looking for a specific part in dark bluish gray, say I'm looking for a 1x2 plate with a small ball mount on the side of it, depending on the size of that bin and how many large pieces in there, it can be very hard to find. This is a very small sample size of what a sorted by color bin would look like with not too many different pieces in it, so it's pretty simple to find what you're looking for in there. But on a much larger scale, you'll start running into some problems if you're looking for very small pieces, and that kind of goes into when I think you should use color based on the size of your collection. Regardless of how you think about looking for parts and how you build, I think that sorting by color really makes the most sense if you only have maybe a few hundred pieces, maybe 1,000 pieces in total in a bunch of different colors. 2,000 maybe I would say is the cutoff for when you should be sorting by color. But really the only good way to tell when you should probably think about resorting your collection is if it gets to the point where you have so many pieces in one color that you cannot find the really small pieces because they've gone to the bottom of whatever bin you have, and it's just too inconvenient to dig through that entire bin looking for one piece, which is kind of what I ran into, which is why I obviously don't sort my parts by color anymore. There are definitely benefits to sorting your parts by color. For example, if you build something in one color, say I want to build like a statue or something out of dark gray, I just open whatever bin this is and boom, all my dark gray pieces are there. I can find whatever I need and I don't have to go look through the very large number of bins that you would have to look through if you sort your pieces by individual part. So it can have its benefits and its drawbacks as well. Like I mentioned, if you are looking for a specific part and you have a huge bin of whatever color it is, you're going to probably spend hours and hours looking for that part if you don't dump it out on the ground, and then you still have to clean the bin up, which is just a hassle. So again, I'm not saying necessarily either one of these is better objectively, but in my opinion, I think that for most collections, above the really small collection size, you're going to want to go with by part. And that is mostly just because of the ease of finding pieces. And remember, the main goal of sorting out your parts, overall, generally speaking, is to minimize the amount of time you have to look for pieces so that you can keep building and whatnot. So overall, again, I think sorting by part is the best, but there are reasons why you'd sort by both, which is kind of what we've been talking about. And of course, I'll briefly talk about all the different variations of part and by color. You'll very rarely find a collection that is truly sorted out by part or by color specifically. And I will say right now that my collection is kind of somewhere in the middle. Of course, I lean more towards sorting by part, which is how I have everything sort of sorted and laid out in my collection. But there are definitely some things that I pull out by color, or some pieces that I sort by color. You'll notice, for example, that I sort all of my 1x1 round plates, or studs as you call them. Pretty much all of those are sorted by color because it really doesn't, for me, make a whole lot of sense to have just a huge tub full of studs and just all the different colors. because really there's just such a volume of those pieces, and I know it's weird to say because they're tiny, but there's such a volume of those pieces that, in my honest opinion, it really doesn't make sense for me to sort those all into just one bin. I think it makes more sense to have pieces like that sorted out by color. And of course there are some things I pull out of different part bins, like 2x6 light gray bricks. Because if I didn't pull those out, I have so many of those that really I would not be able to find anything else in that bin. So really, if you want to know my opinion, what I recommend is going with a sorting by part system, which is kind of like this, but pulling out parts in any instance where either you use the part in a certain color a lot, or B, you just have a lot of the part in the certain color, because if you pull it all out, then kind of all the other colors will kind of be more or less equally present in the bin. I guess that's the best way of saying it right now. There's probably a better way, but I'm not thinking of it. So it will be easier to find those pieces. But that's just my opinion. You feel free to do whatever you want. Hopefully this segment will give you the information that you need to figure out how to sort your collection in a way that works best for you. But I think now we're going to move on to the next thing, which is kind of more specifically how I try to sort my bulk parts into my storage containers. Alright, so the next thing we're going to talk about in this video is kind of the method of sorting whatever you need to sort, whether it's resorting your collection, which I have been through, or if you have a bunch of bulk pieces which you have acquired, which is what I'll be doing here in this segment, into your collection. So first things first, what you'll need to do is you'll need to kind of have your collection all sorted out into different bins. What those bins are will depend on a whole bunch of different factors, but again, I will not be covering that in this video. That will be the next video in this series, which will be kind of your various different storage methods and options for storing your Lego collection, which will depend on how you choose to sort, which we kind of talked about in the last segment of this video. So this segment will just be focusing on sorting pieces into your collection. So yeah, as you can see here on this large kind of bin in front of you is just a whole bunch of various bulk pieces that I have acquired and that need to get sorted into my storage or in broader collection kind of just overall. So that is what all of these pieces are, and I will not be sorting all of them in this video because that would just take too long in this video. At least the last segment was already 10 minutes. So I'm not going to be doing all of that. However, I will be doing some of this to kind of show kind of my process of how I like to sort my parts into my collection for whatever reason. You are totally free to go and look around to find various other methods that people have done, but I honestly think that the best way to figure out or find a sorting method that you enjoy is through experimentation. You know, try things you think you would like. If you like them, stick with them. If you don't like them, you know, try something else. Feel free to look elsewhere. I'm just presenting what I do, what I like, and what I think works for me the best in this video here. So we will get into that without further ado. So what I'm going to do, and I would not normally do this, I'd probably just dump this whole bin out, but I'm not going to be sorting all of it, so I'll just leave most of it contained. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take some of the parts from this bin. We'll try to get a healthy smattering of pieces here. We'll try to throw some stickered ones in, you know, some Bionicle, some system pieces, you know. We'll just try to get all kinds of different things in here so that I can kind of go through them and sort all of them. So I think that will be a good, healthy amount of pieces. Maybe we'll throw in 1 or 2 more pieces, you know, maybe 3 pieces. So there we go. So now we have our pieces, all that I will be sorting in this video. So put the bin off to the side. I will not be looking at any more of that stuff in this video. And I did not make a specific haul video about that, and I will not be doing that. So, you know, if you wanted to see what that was, just rewind the video and you can kind of look at the contents of the bin. Alright, so here you can see I have my pieces. So these are all the pieces we're going to be looking through today. And kind of what I like to do is, one, just kind of some things that this all hinges on. One, I completely understand that sorting your pieces is kind of a balance, or at least your method is a balance of making it fun and making it fast. So kind of what I think will make a good sorting method is a sorting method which balances fun and fast, because pretty much if you aim for speed, no matter how you do it, sorting pieces takes time, and the more pieces you have to sort, the more time it will take. So, you know, I don't focus as much on that. I focus more on making the process enjoyable, because I already know that it's something I'm going to be spending time on, so I'm not going to try to make it super fast because I know that it won't be. There are other methods out there which focus more on speed, but I focus more on making it kind of fast but also enjoyable. So the first thing that I like to do when I'm sorting my pieces out is I like to take apart any assembled pieces that I have in here. I do not have anything assembled in here because I have washed and inventoried all of these, which I may make a future video about how to wash Lego parts, because I think that might be important. Not a part of this series, but just a future video. And as far as inventorying parts, that will be a future video in this series, which, if you want to know what the future videos in the series are, go check out the previous episode, episode 0, where I kind of laid all that stuff out. So, first thing I like to do is take apart all the various assemblies that there may be in a bunch of parts that need to be sorted, whether it's a set or bulk parts like in this example. But here there are no assemblies because, again, I have already taken all of them apart. So, really nothing to do on that front. So really then the next thing I like to do is I like to start by picking out kind of the larger pieces, or the pieces that I know where they go specifically. So say for example this 2x6 light gray brick, I have quite a few of these. I know where these go. I'm quite familiar with this. And what I like to do from here is once I know what a part is, I like to just put it straight into the storage bin, which is just wherever I'm storing it. In this case, this is stored off camera, which I will just put in that bin right now. Just a very large bin, just a pretty large Sterilite bin just full of that piece, which is where that piece goes. And the reason that I don't put them in a different container after sorting them is that I feel like that just adds unnecessary steps and really just unnecessary time. So I prefer whatever I'm sorting, I just like to sort directly from the unsorted Lego into whatever container it's going to be living in for the rest of its life in my collection. So next we have this piece. This is kind of an unusual plate which I keep in its own area, again off to the side so you're not going to see where this goes, but this goes in a bin similar to the bin that I had all the bulk parts in. So I'm just going to go put this in its bin very simply like that. So then pretty much I just keep on doing this for the rest of the pieces, one by one. Stud in white, that goes in its own drawer over here, which I will go do. And obviously it gets faster if you're not giving commentary, so this is not an entirely accurate representation of me just kind of commentating what I'm doing for most of these. But, you know, it gets a lot faster if you're not giving commentary. This is a fender, you know, it's a car part. I sort all the car parts together because I don't have space otherwise, so I'll just put that in with all the other car parts. You know, leg armor, that variety goes in that drawer, so that's where it goes. Slope piece goes in a different bin off to the side, so I will just put that in with all of the other sloped bricks. And you know, you kind of keep sorting just like that if you choose to do this method. Unusual plate goes in the unusual plate bin, you know. It's helpful if while you're doing this you know your collection. Just as a warning, because if you don't know your collection you will spend a lot of time looking for where you stashed things, and overall that's not good. So try to at least have a vague idea of where things will probably be. And of course there will always be pieces that you don't have a whole lot of or haven't sorted out, like this piece for example. I don't think I have any of these loose in my collection, so I'm just going to set this off to the side for now, and then once I'm done sorting through all the other pieces I'll go rework things as necessary to fit that somewhere in my collection. So pretty much I just continue this process. You know, I see this piece, I know where it is, I know what it is, I know where it goes, so I put it there, and that's pretty much the end of that. And the pieces, and it's been ready to be used for whatever I need it, or just to sit there until I need it for something. So I pretty much just keep doing that until all the pieces have been sorted, which, you know, depending on how many pieces you have, like in this small lot, it could just take a few minutes. And of course I'm explaining it, so not necessarily the most accurate representation, or it could take a few hours. It all depends on how many pieces you have and how many pieces you have to move to other places. So really, that is all the explanation I think that I will be able to give on this particular sorting method. Again, feel free to go look for other methods that you might enjoy a bit more, but I recommend just looking around and experimenting to see which elements and kind of strategies you like the most. So that's just kind of my 2 cents on it. Feel free to do whatever you want. Again, the point of this series is not to tell you that this is the best way to do something, even though in my opinion it may very well be the best at something or the best way to do something. It's to give you ideas so that when you sort your own collection or whatnot, you know what's going on and you know what to do. So really that's that's that. I'm just going to finish sorting out these pieces now that I've kind of explained how I go about doing that. And yeah, so I'm just going to finish sorting out pretty much all of these pieces, and that will be the end of this segment. So, I'll just sort whatever's left on screen, and that will be that. So let's do some sorting stuff. Alright, so those are all of the pieces more or less sorted from that little selection. It took me a little while to get to all the different places I had to put pieces because the lighting kit's kind of in the way, which is what's making this kind of scene not look like complete garbage. So, again, maybe not the most accurate, but you kind of get the idea. I'll say a few quick things about sorting kind of before we finish this segment, is that one, I tend to sort out printed and stickered elements most of the time. Obviously there are some exceptions to that rule. Like for example, my Bionicle projectiles sort of bin. You can see printed elements among non-printed elements in here, and there's stuff like that. But pretty much that's what I recommend. Sort out the stickered elements and stuff. And yeah, so kind of to wrap up this segment, if you're looking for a way to sort your Lego into your collection, I recommend you can do what I have here, see if it works for you, but I encourage you to look around, see what other people are doing, and most importantly, experiment with different methods to find the one that you like the most. So I think that's going to wrap up this segment. So lastly, I'll be talking about the whole idea of to-be sorted bins. Alright, so kind of the last thing to talk about in this specific video is to-be sorted bins. You've probably heard the term before, maybe you don't know what it means, so I'll fill you in. A to-be sorted bin is basically a bin that you have in somewhere where you store your parts, which is empty, and what you do with that bin is, say you don't want to sort something right now, but you have something that you don't want, you need to take apart, but it needs to be sorted, so you just put it in that bin and you forget about it, and then when you have some time, you sort it later. So that is what a to-be sorted bin is. You may be wondering where my visual for this one is, and I don't actually have a visual for this because I don't have a to-be sorted bin in my collection, and I'll get to the reasons why you might not want one in a second. But first I'll talk about why you might want a to-be sorted bin, because that is entirely a valid thing to think about. So some good reasons to have a to-be sorted bin. One, it will allow you to build faster. Say you want to build something, but you have something you got to take apart. Instead of having to take it apart to make space to build something else, you just throw it in the bin, you forget about it, and you go on your merry way and you build something. It also does allow you to have a bit of extra storage space for some unwanted things, which I guess is good. I mean, if you just sorted them directly in, you wouldn't have that problem, but I'll get to that in a minute. And kind of the last thing I can think about is, besides kind of the whole allowing you to build stuff faster, it does save you a bit of time, kind of just in between things, as instead of having to put a part, say, back where you found it for whatever, say you get out a part that you think is going to work on something, but it doesn't, and instead of putting it back, you can just mindlessly chuck it into that bin and not have to worry about it for the rest of the project. And that's kind of where my praise of to-be sorted bins ends. Those are really the only pros that I see from them, so now I'll kind of get into the cons. And kind of probably the only main con, well, there's kind of two. Well, I'll get the less important one out of the way first, is that one, to-be sorted bins are kind of taking up a spot in your collection for something that's not always going to be full for when you're storing stuff. So it's just kind of, it's more or less just reserved space for something you don't want to necessarily have put together, but it does still take up space. And if it's empty and it's taking up space, then it's not really doing anything for you besides just taking up space and waiting for you to put something in it. So that's kind of the first con. And then probably the second and more important con about to-be sorted bins is that they're kind of just like saving you a few seconds to cost you a few hours. And I know that might not necessarily be true, but in some respects it kind of is. At least in my experience with to-be sorted bins, what you'll end up doing is you'll want to build something, but you don't want something else, so you'll put the thing you don't want in there, you'll go on your merry way, you'll build something, and then you'll just keep on doing that over and over and over and over again until eventually the to be sorted bin is full, you can't put anything in it, and then you have to spend multiple hours just taking apart or sorting or whatever all those pieces that you put in the to be sorted bin. It just, just put that in your collection. And if anything, sorting pieces in a multiple hour stretch is way more boring than sorting pieces, in a few seconds or a few minutes after or between builds. So, that's kind of the main con that I see, is that while you may be saving yourself a few seconds or minutes in between things, you're ultimately costing you just quite a few hours down the road, which, knowing me, is not time that I would want to spend doing something like that. You may very well enjoy it, and if you enjoy having to spend multiple hours doing what you could have done in just various seconds scattered throughout all different building periods, then you're free to do that. But I just find that that is the biggest con with to be sorted bins, and that's also the main reason I don't have one, which is again because of the method that I mentioned earlier, which is you just keep putting stuff in it and putting stuff in it and going on your merry way, and then it just costs you a whole bunch of time, which is way more boring than just spending the time as you need it. So really, the choice to have a to be sorted bin is up to you. I don't go with one, kind of just mainly for the two cons listed, but there are some benefits to having one like I mentioned. So that's really going to wrap up this episode of my organizing Lego series. So this video was all about sorting. The next video will be, like I mentioned many times, will be all about your part storage, which is kind of the stuff you're seeing in the camera right now, which is just kind of the different storage products and methods and just kind of the pros and cons of each of those, which will be coming out in probably 2 weeks after you see this video. So if you're interested, stay tuned for that. Otherwise, thank you so much for watching. If you have any questions, you can leave them in the comment section below. At some point I may end up doing a Q&A episode at the end of this if there are enough good questions, if I can speak. So, if you have a viewer question, as a viewer, that you want to submit, if I think it's good for a Q&A video, I might save it, but that'll probably be a long time down the road, so if you ask any questions closer to when this video comes out, then I'll probably just answer them flat out, unless I feel like they're really, really helpful questions to have in a specific video, which they may very well be. So if you have any questions, feel free to ask them. Hopefully this video has been helpful and has helped you find some ways to help sort your Lego out, which I think is something that a lot of us struggle with, and it's good that if you find something, you can share it. So again, if you have any questions, leave them in the comments below, or if you found any methods that work well, or you want to talk about anything that I've talked about in this video, feel free to comment in the comment section below. And yeah, so that will be it for this episode of my Organizing Lego series. If you're interested, stay tuned for the future episodes, and I will see you guys in the next video. Goodbye.